Awesome. So I'm Tessa Palmer. I'm a program manager on our connectivity team, and I'm going to be joined shortly by Sine and Asavri, who will introduce themselves as well. So as a quick overview of what you're going to see in this session, we're going to start briefly with an introduction to PowerApps and Flow. This is a 300 level session, so that's going to be pretty brief. We're also going to talk a bit about connectors, because when we talk about unlocking extensibility by connecting, connectors become a pretty important part of that. We're going to show you a demo of how to actually build a connector up on stage, and Sinead's going to show it working end to end as well. We're going to give you a little bit of context about why you would actually build a connector, and then once you've built it, we're going to tell you how you can get it certified and listed in our public marketplace. Great, so starting off with PowerApps and Microsoft Flow. So quick show of hands, how many people have actually used PowerApps and Flow? Okay, great, so most of you. So this will be a very brief overview, but for folks that don't know, PowerApps and Flow are part of the Business Application Platform. So Business Application Platform is a set of services that are designed to help business users measure, act, and automate in their day-to-day work. So besides PowerApps and Flow, this also includes Power BI, which you might be familiar with. And so these services are all part of the Office 365 suite. And you might be familiar with some of them as the evolution of things that you might be using today, say SharePoint Workflow Designer or InfoPath Forms. So starting with PowerApps. PowerApps is a no-code, low-code solution for building custom business applications. So you can really easily connect to different data sources, create apps and forms within seconds, and then publish and use those apps on mobile applications or on the web. So when we talk about building these applications without code, that's actually what we mean. So you can see here on the screen, this is our studio where you build the application. It might look familiar, similar to something like SharePoint, where you're kind of dragging and dropping different components of your application and binding those pieces to different data sources in order to build and publish these really beautiful applications. And once it's created, you can publish this application really easily to any mobile device or a web experience as well. So we have a few different form factors that really allow you to build the application that's intended for the scenario that you're looking for. So on to Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow allows non-developers to easily automate a variety of processes across many different applications and services. So some ideas or some scenarios that you might use Flow for, you can use it to get notifications, you can copy files, sync data, you can also use it for approvals, which is one of the great scenarios that we offer as well. So when we talk about a flow, it's a little different from an application. A flow typically includes a trigger, something that initiates that workflow, and then one or more actions that kind of follow along from it. So in this particular example, this is a notification flow. So you can see when a record is created in Dynamics, it's going to send me an email with details about that record that was created. So you can see you can tie items from one or more of the actions into the subsequent actions as well. So when you're actually using Flow, because it can cover so many different scenarios, we offer a wide variety of templates that make it really easy for anyone to get started. You'll see in a second that really how many different things you can really accomplish. So starting in the templates, we'll give you some examples and ideas to see how Flow might be used in your different scenarios. And we have hundreds of different templates, and they can also be submitted from the community so that folks who are using it can share and give you even more ideas for what worked for them. So that was a brief overview of the products, and now we're going to talk about those connectors that really tie the whole thing together. So a connector is a wrapper around an API that allows that underlying service to talk to PowerApps or Flow. So for example, you can build an application off of a SharePoint list that ties into a Google Drive. Or you can have a flow that starts from a tweet when a tweet occurs, and then you can tie it into email, DocuSign, Dynamics, and more. So these connectors allow you to connect to cloud and on-premise data. This is really important because we know that not all of the data and the services that you want to connect to are actually in the cloud today. So from all of the different types of connectors that we offer, you can really quickly generate and customize applications for both Microsoft and third-party services. You can connect to that on-premise data using our on-premise data gateway. That is also the same gateway as what's used in Power BI, if you're familiar with that. And because the applications connect directly through these connectors to the service, the different rules and permissions that you've set on that underlying service will be respected when someone leverages the workflow or the applications. And we support over 165 different connectors today, and this is growing more and more every week. And when I say 165, it's a wide range of everything. So again, it's not just Microsoft products. You can see here a sample. We have everything from data services, storage, you see SharePoint, you see Dropbox, we have e-signatures, we have bug filing, we have a little bit of everything. And if you don't see the service that you use heavily today, come back next week and it might already be there. So what I was just talking about quickly were the public connectors that we have available to all users. We also have the ability for folks to build custom connectors that are available just within their organization. And that's actually what we're going to hop to in the demo as well. So I'll invite up Sine and Asavri to tell us a little bit more and show us about building connectors, and you can see how the connectors actually work within the different products that we talk to. Great, thanks folks.
Thank you, Tessa, for that awesome overview. My name is Sunay Vaishnav, and I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Flow team.
I'm Asavri Tayal. I am a program manager on connectors.
So it's quite evident that connectors and connecting to data is extremely crucial to building successful PowerApps and flows. Even though we have a huge list of connectors, over 165 of them, it is still possible that you may want to connect to data that is not readily available through the connectors that are available out of the box. So in that case, you need to use custom connectors. Custom connectors, again, allow you to connect to any RESTful API data source that is either in the cloud or on-premise. So you can think from any service that is available as a vendor or an ISV, or a proprietary service within your organization. So very recently, I had this scenario where I wanted to create a flow, a very simple button-based flow that you can pass on a question to, and it responds with an answer that tells you about the product, which is Microsoft Flow. So imagine like a FAQ responder for Microsoft Flow. Now, I started thinking that we already have a documentation website where we have a list of frequently asked questions. So you can see that on the screen right now. It does a good job of answering all the questions, but I really wanted a flow to answer these on demand. Now, on the Flow portal, when you log in, you will see this website. And I'm going to show you the flow that I started creating to basically satisfy my scenario. And by the way, if you guys have not already signed up for Flow, you should do that, like right now. I'll wait. No, seriously. Okay. Anyway, so going back to the flow. So I have this flow, again. I start building out. It takes a manual trigger, and then it takes in as input a question. And then I start switch casing it over all the questions from the FAQ knowledge base. By the third switch case, I thought, well, this is not really extensible. I don't really want to go on building 25 switch cases. On top of that, whenever someone asks a question, they have to exactly match the phrasing on the question. that doesn't really work for me. There has to be an elegant solution, right? So I started looking for services that allow me to basically have a RESTful service that you can pass in a question to, and that it responds with an answer. And if it had natural language processing built into it, that would be even better. So lucky enough, there is an API on Cognitive Service that allows you to do exactly this. It's called the Q&A Maker API. So to give you a very brief overview of what the Q&A Maker API does, is that it takes the original source. So you can see here, I'm just basically pointing it to the Flow FAQ website. So this is my FAQ link, and the Q&A Maker is pointing to that. And then it parses out all the questions and answers automatically, without me having to do anything. And then it gives me out-of-box natural language processing. So all I need to do is then make an API call to the endpoint that it exposes. So very quickly, I'll show you what an example or sample request looks like. It's this code right here that says post to the host.
Can you zoom in?
Sure. There you go. So post to this request, post to this URL with this request body, which has a question parameter, right, in the request. Now I'm going to show you how to build a custom API for this exact endpoint. So hopping back to the Flow portal, I'm going to go back to my custom connectors tab. We don't need this flow anymore. So this is where your created custom connectors or custom connectors that are shared with you will live. Creating a custom connector is a not super simple process, but it's quite straightforward. It requires you to have a basic understanding of how REST APIs work and what authentication protocols are used to protect these APIs. But if you have that knowledge, and if you can make sample requests and get the responses back, you can create a custom API. So I'm going to start off by creating a custom connector from blank.
So it's important to note that in this case, we're starting from completely scratch. But if you have an existing description for your API, something like an open API or a Swagger file or even a Postman collection, you could simply get started from those artifacts as well.
Sure. Yes, sir, we can. How about that? Does that work? All right. So this is the general tab. On this tab, you basically define the icon, the description, a background URL, the host, and the base URL for the custom connector. The host and the base URL are the most important parts. So I'm going to copy over the host and the base URL for my Q&A Maker API from the Cognitive Services portal. So that is Control C. Next up is the security tab. So on this tab, you define the authentication protocol that secures your API. We support no auth, API key, and so on and so forth. API key is used to protect the Cognitive Services API, so I'm going to go select that and configure it accordingly.
And so if your API supports OAuth, Azure Active Directory, Basic Auth, or API key in this case, you can still secure your API as a custom connector.
Also, it's important to note that I'm not entering any secrets here. You're only defining the header on which the value of the API key goes, right? The secrets always go into the connections of the custom connectors, never in the custom connector itself. So this is the definition tab. This is essentially the meat of the custom connector. You're going to basically create all the actions and triggers that are required to be used within Flow or PowerApps and build applications on top of the custom connector. Note that triggers only apply to Microsoft Flow. So I'm going to start by adding a new action, providing summary, description, and an operation ID. Keep in mind that the operation ID must be unique, and you should keep it concise and legible, because this operation ID is used within PowerApps to invoke these operations as well.
One of the things to note is that this general information that you're providing about your operation is not only listed, used to list the capabilities of your connector, but also shows up in the Visual Workflow Designer in Flow. Also, we use this to document the different things your connector can do in our connectors reference.
The next step is to import a sample request. So luckily, again, for the Q&A maker, they show me what the sample HTTP request needs to look like. So I'm going to start copying the request body first in here. I'm going to select the verb that's post, and then copy in the raw URL that is used to make this request. All right, so that looks good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and import it. Once I've imported it, you'll see that some validation runs. Now this validation is telling me that operation ID needs to start with a capital letter. But if you have any issues with the import, you will see validation errors here, and you can go fix them right away. So I'm going to fix one of mine. And next, I'm going to import a sample response. The Q&A maker does not give me a sample response, but I've already made a request and gotten back a sample response, which is in my Visual Studio Code.
Interestingly, things that you're seeing in the response here are actually values that the user would see in the Workflow Designer as either input parameters or even response attributes that they could use in further operations.
So once I've imported the response, I can go back, again, check the validation. Validation successful. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and create the connector. Now, usually, for a newly created custom connector, it takes about 3 to 5 minutes for it to actually go live and be operational. This is because we need to replicate the connector across multiple regions to account for things like disaster recovery, and high availability. So in the interest of time, I have an exactly same connector pre-created, which I will show you to test the action that you have created just right now. So again, it's the same API. You can see the URL is the same. So going on to the test tab, you will notice that I already have a connection created. This connection actually contains the API key, or the secret, that is used to authenticate the API calls going through the custom connector to the backend service. Now, to test the Q&A for Flow operation, I need a question. Sarvi, what do you think we should ask for the first test run?
Do you want to try what's Flow?
All right, let's do that. There you go. So as soon as I hit test flow or test operation, it actually makes a real-time request through the custom connector to your backend API service. Oh, yeah. And it responds with an actual answer. This is not the sample that I pasted in. It also gives me a score that gives me a sort of probability of what how close the answer is to the actual question. Now, I want to go back to the flow, and And remember how I had the original flow with switch cases? Now, all I need to do is rip out the switch cases and replace it with the custom connector. So I'm going to show you now how I can very easily build a flow that does basically allow my end users to invoke a button-triggered flow, ask a question, and get an answer in the response of the push, as a push notification. So let's start by creating a flow from blank. Selecting a button trigger. And then I'm going to say I want a text input. The name of the parameter is question. Enter your next step is to add a Q&A maker question. I'm going to pick the question that's the output of the input parameter that I defined in the previous step right here. So this guy over here corresponds to the question output. And my next step is to then send a push notification. With the answer. I don't really need to send the score. Now, since the answer is an array, in this case, it puts a for each loop automatically for us. But I have configured my Q&A maker to always return just one answer. In case you want to respond with multiple answers, you can do that as well. So I'm going to quickly name this flow. And create it. Now I'm going to share this flow with Asavri, and she's going to show you how she will show you by invoking the flow from her mobile app and asking it a question. And I will be sharing it with her such that she does not have to really provide any connections. All she needs to do is go on her mobile app, press a button, type in the question, and she will receive the answer. Here, flow properties page, add her as a run-only user. And hit save. Now this is Asavri's phone. And she should, when she goes to the Flow app, she should receive an email, and she'll be able to pull in the button that I just shared with her.
So that's the Flow app, and I can navigate to the buttons view, which would show me any new buttons that were shared with me. In this case, I would just wait for the shared flow to show up, refreshing the view. So Flow with an elegant solution is the new button, and let's add it to my list of buttons, to the button tab, and let's view this again. So to run this flow, I trigger it with a button on my app. I'll say Flow with an elegant solution.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
So are you sure this works?
Yeah, let's see it. I mean, we have the debug view also loaded in the back. So as soon as she asks the question, you will see the run actually trigger and go through all the steps of the flow.
So let me try maybe what the audience is for Flow.
It's running. Oh, and there you see it. So it gives her an answer as to what Microsoft Flow is. And it actually does pick up the answer, not wanting to take away your view, Asavri, but from right here. The question actually was, who is the intended audience for Microsoft Flow? That's not what the question she asked. So we got like basic NLP, right? We got a custom API, or custom connector rather, connected with a flow that eliminated need for us to write 25 switch cases. That is really cool, right? Thank you. So there are two other things that I would like to cover. I know this demo has been quite focused on Flow, but the custom connector platform is available equally for both PowerApps and Flow. So if I go to the PowerApps portal and I hit the Gear tab, similar to the Gear tab, Gear menu in the Flow portal, you will see the custom connectors option here as well. Now, if I click on that, you will see the same custom connectors that I created, one before this demo and one right now in this view. So you can use these connectors in PowerApps and Flow. You just need to build them once, and you can use them across the two products. There's even more mileage that you can get out of connectors. Now imagine that I'm a pro developer in my organization, or a citizen developer in my organization that does understand all these concepts. But maybe my peers don't. So I don't want everyone to have to create their own custom connectors. I can actually share custom connectors with them, and they can use them to build their own PowerApps and Flows. You can do that easily by clicking on the View Properties page and clicking on Share, and then sharing it with everyone within your organization or just a few select people. You can give them either edit permissions, or you can give them just use-only permissions. So I'm going to now recap all that we saw today by moving on to the slides. All right, so to quickly recap, we identified a scenario that required us to build a custom connector. We then built one, tested it, shared it with other users in our organization, and used it within a flow. So that's the whole power of custom connectors. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Asabri.
Great. So folks, we talked about the what, we saw the how. I'd like to dive a little deeper into the why. Why should you build a connector, a custom connector, or a connector? What will you gain out of this effort? So folks in the audience, if you're an enterprise developer, that is, you build integrated solutions for your business, but your app or flow is unable to speak to a certain service because we don't offer an out-of-the-box connector for it today, the good news is you can build a custom connector and enable your scenario. Similarly, say you had an internal service in your organization, something like an incident management system or an internal data analysis tool, and you wanted to build apps and flows around that. Again, you can build a custom connector and share it with folks within your company so they, in turn, can build their own solutions. Or you're on the other side of things. That is, you're an independent software vendor. That is, you specialize in a certain SaaS offering that we don't offer out of the box today. If that's the case and you're looking to expand the number of systems that you integrate with today, you can build a connector and publish it on our platform. This not only helps you expand the number of people your service and API reaches today, but also provides the very extensibility your customers and partners have always needed. The good news I have for you today is that the process to build a publicly available connector is absolutely the same as that of a custom connector. We develop, we test, we share with an added step of certification that's done by us for you. And that's the case for publicly available connectors. So let's dive a little more into what the certification process entails. First of all, you will submit your artifacts to Microsoft along with all your custom connector files. We then validate both the content and functionality of your connector to ensure a consistent user experience for your customers and ours. Thereafter, we release the connector to all regions of Microsoft Flow, PowerApps, and also Azure Logic Apps. During the release timeframe, we work with you to put together a solid go-to-market plan in terms of blog posts, highlighting hero templates, and also making a bunch of social noise around these. Finally, we release the connector under a preview tag. What this means is that once the connector is released, we will work with you to track usage, success rate, but also monitor the community forums for any feedback regarding the functionality. So we can further go and iterate and provide updates to your connector. So folks, all you need to build a connector for your service is a REST API. If you're building your app on Azure or hosting your app on Azure, the great news is you qualify for the standard connector benefit. What this means is that your connector will be available to all users of Office 365 enterprise plans without having them to sign up for a paid offering of Flow or PowerApps. So find the link on the screen, aka.ms /swag API connectors, to find more documentation, sign up, and learn more about the kinds of things you can do. So let's get started and join the extensibility party today. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Savri, and thank you, Sine, as well. So just as a quick summary of everything that you saw today, because there's a lot of content really quickly. So started off with that, what is PowerApps and Flow? I know most of you had already used it before, so hopefully that's just a recap. Dove a little more into what is a connector, because it's probably something you've seen in these products, but maybe don't know the depth and how all of the different pieces work together. Then you got to see how easy it is to actually build your own connector, whether you're an enterprise developer trying to solve a solution for your own organization, or you're an ISV and you want to build a connector that will be listed on our marketplace. So then we explained both those options and, of course, how to get your connector certified, which is a very straightforward process, almost as easy as building the connector itself. And then you get it listed and publicly available for all our users in Flow and PowerApps and, of course, Azure Logic Apps as well. So we will be at the Flow and PowerApps booth for the rest of the conference. If you guys had any additional questions or you want to see a little bit more about the connector we built or how to build your own, we do want to remind you to please evaluate the session. I'm sure you've seen the slide a lot this week, but it is really important so that we can get your feedback and continue to go from there. And with that, we will open it up for any questions that you might have. And if you do, please come on up to the mic and we can get them answered. Hi.
So do you have a sample connector that you might have written just to help someone who has to go through the development of it?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, so we have some documentation that actually does contain code samples as well. We can give you links to what those basically artifacts. You can find them very easily if you go to the documentation section of Flow or PowerApps and then navigate to building a connector for enterprises or ISVs.
Okay, because the reason we would care about doing this, not being an ISV, is that we need to do something more sophisticated than a simple SQL query from our on-premises data. We were told if we had to do things like joins or call sort procedures, well, it would be really useful to be able to see how that's mapped back into the JSON objects and so forth. So you're saying if I wanted to mimic going to a SQL server and pass that data back, that there's a sample that would make that obvious to me.
So, yeah. So there are multiple options. Like the scenario that you've defined is more complex than straight REST service, right?
Yes.
Because SQL is a tabular sort of service
Yes.
that returns data in non-JSON formats. So you may want to think about creating an Azure API app or web app that takes or function, yes, that transforms your SQL data, the schema of the SQL data into JSON. We can chat more about this offline because we have some code that allows you to transform XML to JSON, etc. But we should connect afterwards.
There's a bunch of customers doing that. Basically, you will take the web service and have a small little tier to provide to Flow or PowerApps exactly the format you want there, and then that piece of code you can do whatever you want to connect to your data and do more complex functions or something like that. So good job.
Yeah, and so folks who couldn't hear what Frank just said, we have customers who are doing some similar scenarios, so if you are interested, come up and perhaps this guy in the second row will get you hooked up.
As a follow-up to that, what can you do with just that custom connector connecting to on-premise?
So the question is, as a follow-up, what can you do with custom connectors connecting to on-prem, which we could start with. So we also do support custom connectors on on-prem services. The expectation, again, with this lightweight is that it works very nicely with some kind of API or kind of HTTP-like interaction. For something more complex like on-prem SQL, again, there are other options that we can dive into.
The SQL connector works directly.
The SQL connector itself, so the public connectors that we do have ones that work both for cloud sources as well as on-prem, and the SQL connector is one of them.
Hiya. So the process that you went through to create the custom connector is very, very similar to how you would register an API in API management, in Azure API management. So if you're a big organization, you might have already gone through the process of building up this big catalog of APIs. Are you guys thinking about, in the future, being able to import that straight into here without having to do it again?
Definitely, yeah. So it's
Actually, that feature is about to ship, so you will be able to directly export. So you can today directly export documented Azure functions from Azure to PowerApps and Flow. APIM is shipping this feature, I think, in a week or two that allow anything built on APIM that has Swagger attached to it or OpenAPI to be pulled into PowerApps and the Flow platform.
it'll still be so pretty much you're taking the definition from API and you're registering it again, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it'll make it a little more streamlined.
Just a question, is it also possible to do these custom connectors in Logic Apps? Because it's
Yes, as of, I think, this week again, it is possible to have, the UI is the same. So if you are building a connector in Logic Apps, Flow, or PowerApps, it applies everywhere.
If you swing by the Logic Apps booth, they'll give you a great demo of it as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
For access to an on-premise REST service, does it leverage the same gateway, or how does that work?
Yep, it's the exact same gateway. So the same data gateway that we use for the public connectors, for Power BI, and Flow and PowerApps and Logic Apps, that same one can now be used for custom connectors as well. I believe that just also went out around this week, yeah. Yeah, in Logic Apps, it's a little bit further. I think it'll be in a week or so after that, but you should see updated documentation in a blog post shortly.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is it possible to extend the Microsoft connectors which are there? For example, if there are some actions which are missing in the SharePoint connector, can I write a connector on top of that?
Good question. So the question is it possible to extend the existing public connectors that we have today? So it is possible for you to build a custom connector that would go against SharePoint APIs. So you could kind of use it in conjunction with the public connector that we have today. We've been looking at ways to make the connectors we've already built more accessible for folks to actually add to it. But the very first thing that you would do is you would find that SharePoint action that you're looking for and build a custom connector specifically for that. So we can
Submit feedback for ideas.
So we can talk more about this offline because probably the scenario that you're looking for, we actually want in the public connector as well.
And like I may be doing something which is already going to come up. And
Definitely, yes.
Once I submit the custom connector, it may not get approved because that was already planned.
Good question. Okay, so the comment was if I build something and I submit it, but you're already planning on updating, how does that work? So actually right now we only submit or accept submissions for connectors for services that you own. So we have an ideas forum as far as extending the connectors that are there today. But right now the actual certification process is expected for the owner of the service. So SharePoint themselves, for example, would submit the SharePoint connector.
Custom connectors do not need to get certified. You just create them, you deploy them within your own org, and you can go, so you don't need any certification just to use them within your company.
So yeah, the additional comment was that you don't need certification to use that custom connector, of course, within your own company. So if it's something to unblock your scenario, then it's definitely you could use a custom connector to get it started. If you did all that work and you want to share it with folks and kind of build it back into our system, the community is probably that best way. And actually, us as the connector team are happy to collaborate. It just won't go through that same certification process.
I'll just add, there's a couple of GitHub samples as well that demonstrate adding functionality to the
Existing ones.
custom connector functionality specifically for SharePoint. So you've got offline.
Yeah, and just to repeat what Marwan just said is that there are certain mechanisms by which you can extend custom connectors. A few folks have already done blogs on these things. So if you want more details, please stay back and chat with us about that.
Great. Any other questions?
I got one. If I wanted to just do a quick test tonight with your FAQ and your questions and answers, to build a connector, the scenario that you built right there, if I apply that to a SharePoint list that currently has FAQ and a knowledge base for it, would that scenario work with that?
So the question is, can you build a Q&A maker for data sources that are in data that is stored in SharePoint? The answer is absolutely yes. The Q&A maker API does allow you to upload document files or TSX files, etc., that parses the data, Q&A data, from the file format that you submit, and then it exposes, again, a RESTful API endpoint. Once you have created your service in Q&A maker, you follow the exact same steps that I showed you, and you will be able to create a custom connector.
And also, Sine has promised to submit that connector so that we have it within Flow natively as well. He might not get to it tonight, but he could definitely very soon. Great. Well, if that's all the questions, thanks again, everyone, for trekking all the way over here, and enjoy the rest of your night.